Hey, how you guys doing? Today I'm gonna do a review with you of the LG Nexus 4. Um, Now, obviously, this is not a an average review, normal review that you'd see on YouTube, because it's very late. The Nexus 4 is not a new phone, so this is more like a after 6, 7 months of use. Um, the things that I've noticed, the pros, the cons, and with this blabber about the Nexus 5 coming out soon, what I would like to see in that new phone, and if it does have those things, whether or not I think it will be a good upgrade for people with Nexi 4s, let me say. Um, okay, so the Nexus 4 was a really it was a really good phone. I mean, when it came out, it was brilliant. We had the 4.7-inch Super IPS display from LG. Obviously, they chose LCD because they don't really do AMOLED or none of that OLED stuff. It was 1280 by 768 resolution, so it wasn't your normal 720p resolution, just slightly more. I don't know if you can tell in this picture. It's like wider. Um, and in comparison to the Galaxy Nexus, you have this extra row of icons because of that resolution. Um, yeah, it had 2 gigs of RAM, 8 megapixel back camera with autofocus. The front camera, I think, was 1.3 megapixel, not too sure. Doesn't really matter. Then the processor was a 1.5 gigahertz quad core. Um, yeah, so as you can tell, it's really up there in terms of specs, and and yes, that is true because on Antutu at some point it was actually the best Android phone on their rankings with the highest benchmark scores. So yeah, really up there in terms of speed, smoothness. The graphics card was an Adreno 320, not the best, but really, up there. Um, so I bought this phone in February, early February of this year. And Yeah, this is basically my take on it, some of the things I've noticed and some of the things that I don't like. Um, One thing I noticed first out of the box was it's kind of huge. Um, yeah, I mean, I wasn't a person that was very used to large phones. I think my previous phone, which was a Motorola Atrix, um, had a much smaller display. So anyway, that's just my personal take. Um, Besides that, I couldn't help noticing how well the Android ecosystem has evolved. I mean, it was brilliant. It's just fast, it's smooth, it just works. It's clutter free, which is something that is really new to Android. Because I've owned many Android phones. I've had the from HTC's, which is the Sense ecosystem, to Samsung's, which is the TouchWiz, to Motorola, which is the Blur, um, and I've been able to see how different Android can be on all these different platforms. And one thing that came to my attention first of all out of the box with all of these phones was with Sense, the lag. I mean, from the older version Senses that ran, was it Sense 2.0 with the Android 2.1 Eclair? I'm not too sure about the names. The older versions, they were terrible. They were good phones at their time, but in terms of speed, I mean, that's why the iPhone always had, the prize. That it was just so much smoother, so much faster. Um, Even if we go to the modern phones, like more recently, I've owned the HTC One X, and I mean, yes, it's a really good phone. I mean, one of the best displays I've seen on a mobile in a really long time. Lovely display, camera, decent. Oh, definitely better than this one. It has the Nvidia Tegra, is it Tegra 3 chipset and all that. But it really starts to show because you got all these. It shows, the lag really shows because when you're, I mean, for instance, with the widgets or sweeping through the main menus through your home screen, you really start to see that all this clutter really gets in the way, and it really slows down your phone and really messes up the whole experience. And sometimes it gets really frustrating with Android Jelly Bean, the best version, basically 4.2.2 of Android that there is to date. Google did really well. I mean, now get your whole on-screen folders and everything. You have this really bold look. It's not too sophisticated, not too graphical, and yet it's just it just works together really well. As you can see, I've got quite a few apps installed here, but big apps, some of them too, like Grand Theft Auto, Granny Smith, purchases here and there. And in terms of smoothness, it really doesn't seem to have slowed down at all, really, which is one of the drawbacks that I had with my previous Android smartphones. With Sense, used to complain about this and that. You've had too many apps installed and it's just slowing down. It'll take ages to get out of the whole HTC quietly brilliant screen at boot, and it was really ridiculously annoying. With this, none of that really, which is a plus. A thing I have noticed though with the whole Android ecosystem is that the modern Android ecosystem is that I think Google tried to focus on being bold, not being too overly sophisticated, actually not being sophisticated at all, just keeping it really bold and simplistic. And it really pays off. I mean, it pays off in terms of performance because I've had this phone how much, 6-7 months, and I've never had any hiccups. Actually, to be honest, I've only had 2 hiccups. One happened the other night, actually, when my it froze when I was trying to launch an app, and the other one I think happened about 3 months ago when I was in the web browser and it sort of froze. But that's 2. I mean, that is a huge step forward. With the old Android phones, the Senses, the HTCs, the Samsungs, and all that, I mean, you could expect it to crash at least once every day. This, brilliant. Butter smooth, no lag, no nothing. It just seems to keep up with everything that you're doing. There we have it, the Nexus 4. I've gone through, most of the advantages that I've seen. Obviously not all, because this is not a full in-depth review. But now I'm going to focus more on the cons. Yes, so this is a Nexus, right? This is basically Google's take on what an Android phone should be like. How fast it should be, like everything, the whole shebang. So it should be the best in actual sense, but in so many ways it so isn't. For instance, my camera, yes, 8 megapixel autofocus camera, blah blah blah, flash, everything, brilliant. Reading about it, it sounds brilliant, but in terms of actual image quality, I will show you some screenshots at the end of this. They really aren't that good. In comparison to, for instance, the Galaxy S3. I won't even bring up the Galaxy S4 into this. Let's just consider that not in this fight. The S3 has a much better camera. So does the iPhone 5, and so does the iPhone 4S actually, which is really not good. I mean, the camera is not disgusting. It's not appalling, but it really can be better. And that's something that really disappoints me, especially with night shots. It really struggles in low light. But outside we've got the sun out, sunny day at the beach and everything. It does quite a decent job. Um, so I'm gonna go on to my next problem, which is the build quality. Um, Obviously, this is much better build quality as compared to the Galaxy Nexus. You know, got the glass on front, glass on back. It looks really feels really premium too as well. But I'm not too sure what Google is trying to do here. For instance, on Amazon right now, a Galaxy Nexus costs way more than the LG Nexus 4, which is a bit strange because this is the much better phone, later model, it should be more expensive. But on the onset, it the Nexus 4 retailed at a much lower price because it's a much cheaper device, and it really shows. For instance, the call quality is somewhat cause for concern. It's not at all brilliant. It's certainly not bad, but it's really not up there. Um, if you look at the phone, like if you look around it, there are obviously a few areas of low quality that you see. For instance, this you can see this beveled edge here, this metallic edge. It's not metallic, it is plastic. Um, so you sort of see these points as you move around the phone. So which also poses another question. What exactly is Google trying to do with the Nexi system actually for their phones? Because my initial thought of the Nexus, for the phone, the Nexus line of phones was, you know, premium devices, you know, vanilla Android, really, really expensive, meaning up there with the iPhones, up there with the, Galaxy S3s. So then they announced the Nexus 4, which was almost a third of the price of some of those phones, and it had all the had all the performance of the big phones. So it was kind of it was like a contradiction. It's a really good phone and it's really cheap, so people bought them a lot. But is that really what a Nexus should be? Because now, if you take a look at the phone as a whole, it's not as good as the Galaxy S3. It's not as good as the iPhone 5. So what exactly is Google trying to do with this? Um, that's what I really don't understand. Like, for example, I'd rather have Google, um, really bust their ass out in making, the best phone that you can possibly imagine, the best spec, the best screen, the best camera, the best front facing camera, the best speaker, the best, everything. Really make, it's a Nexus. That's what it should be. It should be the best phone that, money can buy, and make it expensive. I'd rather pay, those ridiculous prices as like those of the iPhones and so forth, but still getting the best phone. Then we go